Good afternoon. It's been a while since I've done these, so apologies for that. But it will probably be a wacky, schedule thing for the foreseeable future as I am starting a new gig next week, which I will be back working in the offices. So I won't be able to sneak off and take some time out at home to stream. Of course, with the way the coronavirus is going and everyone's responding to that, I might be back working from home sooner than. Oops, sorry about that. Sooner than I think. So one never knows. But happy Friday, nonetheless. Today, now, here, I wanted to take a look at a set of random encounter decks that I received from a company called Venger's Decks. This one is called their Outlander deck. As usual with these, I have not really done too much to look at it because I want to give my authentic kind of first view. So I haven't skimmed through. I will probably pick and choose a few different encounters to choose from. I have a PDF. I believe that they just went on sale beginning of this month. I'm pretty sure you'll be getting physical decks. I'm not sure if there's an option to get the PDF instead of or in addition to physical decks. I would, if I had my druthers, I would obviously love a physical deck, but actually for these kind of videos, a physical deck would be more of a pain for me to set up. The PDF is quite handy. So I don't have a ton of time, so I don't want to spend too much time finagling around, and so let's just get to it. This is the front page of the PDF. Welcome to the Outlander. I will just read at least a little bit of this. Thanks so much for picking up this deck. Your deck contains 50 random encounters you can play in any terrain or location. These color-coded combat, red, and non-combat, green, encounters can add spice to your campaign setting or one-shot, generating one-off scenarios or the beginning or bridge of a full adventure. They'll remind the players that the world they're in is alive and kicking, with or without them, that at any moment they might stumble into danger or adventure. They can also help you improv and buy you some time if the players surprise you and you're not prepared. Just pick a card and run with it until you know what to do next. So there you have it. And he goes on to say, or they go on to say, I'm not sure, Venger, who wrote this particularly from Venger, so I will use they. Designed to slot in whenever you need them, you can either throw these encounters as written at the players, or for an even more immersive feel, adjust the creatures, NPCs, and anything else in the cards to fit your campaign setting. Like the chase card, this can be applied in a town, marketplace with an assassin, but equally you could switch it up so that it's in the woods and the prey in the chase is a bunch of flying monkeys who've just stolen the party's stuff. Flying monkeys. I'm always down with flying monkeys. Big Wizard of Oz fan. Flying monkeys were always a highlight. All right. Remember that the point of the deck is to inspire you. That's true. As for rules, stats, and mechanics, some of the cards refer to example monsters or NPCs or to rules from core books. Again, feel free to change them as you see fit. For more on this, check out Venger's Guide to Random Encounters. I also have a copy of Venger's Guide to Random Encounters. I'm not sure I'll have time to cover this today. If folks are interested in me taking a look at that, maybe I'll do that as a separate stream down the line. Don't sweat the details and enjoy. All right, well, we'll just go to the first encounter. Oh, there's some... Wait, let's see. Okay, so they're telling us, I guess, how these look. So, lore of the Outlander. All right, every encounter card in this deck is divided into sections. This is to help you lay out the scene before the players. Give them enough to draw them in so that they feel enticed to play the encounter and plan out how to make the situation challenging and fun for them. As before, they're there for inspiration, so adjust as you see fit. Here are the sections that you see. Okay, so first there's a hook. What does the party see, hear, feel as the encounter is introduced? All right. Don't worry if the players don't take the bait, and don't try to push them into an encounter in which their PCs don't wish to engage. That's good advice. Highlight that. Oh, that's not what I want. No. No. Sorry. That's good advice, right? With anything. Don't worry if the players don't take particular piece of bait you laid out there and don't push them in there. Nothing is worse than just you feel like you're being forced into an encounter that you don't want to engage. And hopefully you're doing so because there are choices, meaningful choices. Let's say you're out to rescue somebody, something else is happening on the side. You know, as players, both in a meta sense and in the fiction, that you only have a certain amount of powers. You can't afford to take any rests. So you need to save your strength. So you say, you know what, I'm going to skip that side bit because we're trying to get over here. Now, you as the DM may have placed that side bit because maybe you're not prepared for them to get over there or for some other reason, but sorry, you got to figure something else out. Let's see, what else do they say here? But if you present hooks that connect with the PC's backstories or what else has been happening or that just seem like they'd be awesome, sit back and watch what happens. I shall. Next section, we have conflict. What will stop the party from achieving its goal in the encounter? So we got a hook, we got conflict, resolution. What happens if the party achieves or fails? And then there's a twist. What will lead to further conflict to the next encounter, the next step in the party's journey? At the end of the encounter or even during it, optionally, you can add a twist. Okay. That's, whoops, whoa, went too far. All right, so this one is green, so it is non-combat. And it says so in the little header at the top. Non-combat, stone cold levitation. Not too keen on the font. Here I am wearing my old man glasses. But on the... It's nice at larger font sizes. I feel like for those little headers, they could probably use something a little less bold or something give it things a little bit more space to breathe. I don't know if I need the title there at the top, but just I like the fact that they're reminding us it's non-combat because, you know, we're going to be playing these inside the game, or as we play, and we may forget the whole red-green thing. Though it's fairly obvious red is usually, you know, code for hostility or stopping. Green for go, so... But let's see here. So we got some art. It's cute. It reminds me of kind of Adventure Time-esque art style. Stone Cold Levitation. That's the name of this particular encounter. The hook is the party stumbles across magic using creature or hooded figure. All right. No other way around. Maybe party trapped or slides down into chamber. We're missing some bits of language here. I hope that they... I hope that's not going to be a running thing because that will bother me. And only because I just get irritated by such things. Exit party needs. I'm going to start adding these things in as I write. The exit the party needs is locked or blocked beyond the magic user or a magic user who's levitating a very large rock above a cowering NPC or creature who's denying the magic user's accusations of theft. The party is spotted and seen as intruders. The magic user warns that if the party moves 1 inch, they will die. A rock large enough to land on everyone. Wait a minute. Rock large enough to land on everyone but magic user. Cowering NPC or creature begs party to save it in return for a huge reward. Can the party save itself and the cowering NPC or creature? All right. So a few things here. One, needs some grammatical help. I don't know. So I got this a little while back, maybe a month ago, or maybe even more than a month ago. Actually, I think I got it at the end of January. So I guess about a month plus or minus a few days. I don't know if this is the final edited version. And I meant to do this earlier. You know, this was kind of slated, part of my backlog that I'm always struggling with. Wanted to get it done earlier. I couldn't, so I don't know if there is a version where some of this is cleaned up, but there's a bunch of grammatical issues I have with that paragraph. It's enough. It happens often enough, and it's irritating to me enough that it makes it... It's a little bit hard to decipher exactly. Like here it just says, magic user warns that if party moves 1 inch, party will die. Rock large enough to land on everyone but magic user. That's not a sentence. It seems like what they're saying is basically they come in the room, and I guess if you were going to look at this in a layout, and almost this is where I almost wish they had a picture of what this room looks like, because you got 4 or 5 people come into this room, or they slide down into it. Something happens, they're in this room. Now that itself could be an issue, because if you're in the woods and you flip this encounter, well, how do you get them from the woods down into this chamber? Could be an issue. Because if you're in the woods, you're probably not just going to hit, I don't know, a huge trapdoor that makes you fall into the room. And then that kind of makes the thing a little bit weird, so that it can't be a straight just pit into this room, because then they would land on top of the rock, I suppose, that the magic user is levitating, because it's supposed to be very big. If they go through some other kind of chute, it might take a lot to explain away to get down into the chamber. How do you make sure? So everyone might not even be covered by the rock, and it's possible the party could even just back up to get back in the chute or whatever. I suppose you could have it snap shut or some other magical trap to kind of push them into the space. It's a little bit, as a situation, it's a little bit clunky. And so then I would look at it and say, well, I got to do a little bit of brain thinkiness to get them to this. Maybe I wouldn't want to use this. I mean, yeah, I could do something else, but it seems like part of the whole idea of this is that the party is kind of subject to this rock. That's the tension, right? The wizard's got this rock up there, and presumably this is obviously set up as a non-combat encounter, as they mentioned at the top. If he drops the rock, or if he dies, or if it dies, this magic user, then the rock would drop anyway. Let's see what I know. There's a flip side of the card, and I'm curious what the flip side will say. Okay, so that was just the hook, right? So the conflict is that the magic user takes damage or is distracted, right? Concentration ends and the rock falls. So that's what we said before. So that gives you this impetus to solve this not using violence. All right, the cowering creature is chained to the ground. The longer any conversation goes on, the more likely the magic user will allow the rock to fall. Okay, again, I don't know if this is a non-English speaker. I feel like I saw because I went to the website just to check the URL, and it looked like everything was listed in pounds. So I'm guessing maybe it's British, which I guess I only say that to say that it's not, as far as I know, English is the native language. So I'm having a hard time with why there are obvious grammatical issues with missing words. But maybe there's something I'm missing, or just I wonder if it's something where they were doing a lot of cut and replaces, or the way this was set up is some kind of inserts, somewhat as if you were doing Mad Libs. And sometimes with those, Mad Libs, they don't put the things like the articles in there, because you could be a or an, or this or that. So I don't know, but it's something that I think that once they had finalized some of these issues, finalized some of the text, they should have gone back through and added that stuff all the back in, because it really is distracting. And hopefully this maybe is just a one-off, or hopefully maybe they fixed this and I just have an older version that didn't get a final check. But we shall power on. So the longer the conversation goes, the more likely the magic user is just gonna kill this poor NPC and potentially the party with it. You can adjust the rock damage severity per improvised damage rules. The magic user may also have allied creatures there. If the party does nothing, the magic user will move to end the spell. Okay, so the conflict is basically, it seems like this is pretty tough. You can't talk the wizard down obviously you can, but at least this is setting up that idea, that concept. Not likely, because you can't talk him off the ledge, or the odds are, or there's kind of stacking it against you talking off the ledge, because it seems like this guy's just annoyed, and the more you're talking, the more annoyed he's going to get, and he's going to drop it. But of course, role playing and all that, and rolling dice, maybe there's some persuasion, things like that can happen. So the resolution that they're calling to is that the magic user could be bought. The cowering creature took and then lost something valuable that needs finding. If the party devises a cool or cunning solution, run with it. Then have the magic user clap to break the rock into smoke or tiny pieces. That's awfully nice. The magic user will spare the party's lives in return for the lost valuable item. If the party doesn't want to help, the magic user will disappear exclaiming need for the item. So basically, the resolution they're talking about is figuring out that the creature that has been captured or chained up and about to be murdered by Rock stole and lost something that this guy needs. If you get it back, I don't know. Does it something else? I mean, I guess if you just promise to get it back, then he'll let it go. I mean, I suppose this is really aimed at good party. I mean, I guess the thing is right. So the party's under threat as well as the creature. So it behooves everybody, even if you don't care about the creature, to try to find this item. And the twist that they're saying is the item is also something that the party wants for a quest or a backstory or somebody else, maybe that they know. Maybe the item is cursed or doesn't exist. It's a decoy. Think of the magic user's real identity and motive. So that's interesting, right? The magic user could be somebody in disguise. This feels like a very OSR encounter, by the way, because I could see players going like, well, what power is he using to turn rock to smoke? Was it an illusion? A lot of ways this could go. But, well, who knows? It's just a spell they don't know, I suppose. So there you have it. So this one, it's a little bit situational. Because there could be, under certain circumstances, right, if they're in a dungeon and they're just fiddle-faddling around, you could clearly have them enter this room. There you could definitely have some kind of pit open up or some kind of trapdoor. Something ends up in there. It's a little bit more difficult to get this to run in a forest. Of course, there are a couple things you can do. One, just draw another card. This is the first one we've seen. I don't know how many of these are going to be more situational or going to require a whole bunch of a more setup, but you could just draw another card. Maybe you could take away the threat. They could enter a clearing and the wizard could be there. Probably doesn't put the party under threat, but if you work in this item as being backstory or main quest related, that might help. And usually parties want to save NPCs and stuff, right? Or maybe they'll just look at it and say, you know, what's happening here, you know, work it just as a mercenary level. There's clearly something going on. If they enter the clearing and the wizard is shouting about some item that the NPC or creature got rid of, it's an easy way to see if the party goes, ooh, you know, maybe we could make a little money and profit here, right? So there are some options. The setup is a bit clunky, and again, I'm hoping, sorry, there's just a bit of schmutz on my monitor. I'm hoping that the grammar on this one is not continued throughout the deck, but we'll see. Okay, this is another green one. Let's see, I want to get to a red one. I just want to see. Oops. Sorry, I gotta wait for, I think, the PDF to catch up. No? Is it just blank? What's happening? Okay, there we go. Is there, how can I, ooh, probably don't want to do that. What's happening? All right, I want to get to a red one. All right, wait a minute. Let me see this one. This one looks interesting. Okay, this is another non-combat one. It's called A Long Night Shift. This one intrigues me because it's something you could throw out, presumably during a rest. And it's one of those situations I think a lot of times PCs struggle with, what to do during long rests. Something comes up, what kind of things you can do. So this potentially is something you could throw out there. Here's something you can do. Long rest is happening. You rolled up, a random encounter comes up. You don't want to just go into combat. Here's one that works. Appears, at least on the surface, to be non-combat. So here's the hook. During a long rest, especially if the next day something big might be planned, the party loses sleep. Constant noise of crickets or other insects, the source of which can never be found. So they're disturbed constantly by noise that is not something obviously unnatural, but just enough that it's just distracting them. Right? It could be more than noise. Maybe it could be they're annoyed by mosquitoes. Just things are happening. Let's see. Or an NPC arrives at the camp and tries to chat all night. because they're an insomniac. Yeah, I love that. Someone who can't sleep comes in to make sure you can't sleep either. Or it's rain, or it's super hot. Checks are needed to try and ignore it and get to sleep or meditate. How will the party get to sleep? So it's a pretty simple situation, but one you don't necessarily think of. Usually people just read as read that you're going to fall asleep during a long rest, but here's one that, something's big, the tension's in the air, the party's nervous, maybe there's a big encounter that they know is coming up, or a big meeting or something, and it just happens that this night they obviously this is a situation where they most likely don't have a special form. They don't have one of those spells handy that allows them to just create a perfect little resting spot. So they're in nature. You could probably play this, and they don't mention here, but you could probably play this in an urban setting as well. They're in a tavern. It's noisy. There's fights. It could still be hot. There could still be little insects. Maybe there's rats or things creepy crawling around in the night, and it just little things that just add up and just make it hard to sleep. So how does the party deal with that, right? Because it's one of those things you usually don't get challenged on. Oh, you take a long rest, you just take it. Now, so here it is. You want to take the long rest, and you've got the time to take a long rest, but you can't seem to get to sleep. What do you do? So here's the conflict. On a few occasions, noise becomes so loud, or chatter from, I guess, the NPC, or again, if we're in an urban setting, maybe it's just from around. Whatever it is, everything becomes so intrusive, it's unbearable. What will the party do? If it's an insect noise or it's an NPC chat, sometimes it stops completely, and just when the party think it's over, it begins again. Any attempts to keep dry or cool only work for so long. Given the interrupted sleep, checks needed to see if any of the party snores in sleep adds to the noise. Right, it's all about mixing it up. You're trying to sleep. As soon as the NPC stops talking, maybe it starts to rain. As soon as the rain stops, another PC starts snoring. So it's just really bad. So that's what you got to deal with. And how do you get around that? At least nothing mundane works for very long. You put cotton balls in your ears and it starts raining. You take the cotton out and then, whatever, this starts happening. And something else happens. You start to get itchy. Then in the morning, presuming that you don't solve this problem, you gain a level of exhaustion, potentially. Ew. Noise might have stopped completely and the party finds hundreds of dead insects nearby. Maybe there are a few of these nights in a row with different sounds. For example, tooting owls, howling wolves, tweeting nightbirds. If the source of the noise is ever found and dealt with, more noises fill the silence, although to avoid railroading, if the party devises a clever or cool solution, run with it. Alright, the twist is the party then needs to face skill checks or combat with levels of exhaustion. And obviously, they don't say this, but using lingo like levels of exhaustion and improvised damage earlier, this needs to be targeted at 5th edition, right? D&D. Makes sense. Perhaps added further by brutal weather and travel the next day, sapping the party's strength. Someone the party meets later talks of nightly sounds, or who knows the chatty NPC and offers to sell earplugs. Or if it was weather effects, keeping the party awake, offers solutions to cope in the future. This is a tough one, because I really like this kind of encounter, but it's one of those where it seems like there's no... it feels like it's almost set up with no solution. Because one thing stops, another thing starts. Okay, it's raining. Let's get out our umbrellas, get out our tents. Now it's biting insects. Okay, now it's the NPC. I might like a little bit more. Obviously, as the GM, we are free to give them a couple of these. Maybe, roll a 4-sided die to talk about how many different things come up, and then, add some checks. It might have been nice to have a little bit more about what's the kind of desired challenge here, right? Is it just that we want to just rob them of a long rest in a sort of a fun way, and you're doing it by just engineering all these things to, by hook or crook, rob them of their long rest? Because that's kind of what it is over the top of it, just looking out on the surface, because there's no one thing they could do. This is who ultimately is responsible for all this nuisances. Stop it, right? There is no one thing. You can't. Maybe you could stop the insects. Maybe you can't, but maybe you roll and say, here's the the things that are going to happen and let the party just deal with it, right? Because they could just kill the NPC. I suppose they could thunder wave all the bugs or something. I don't know. The rain or the heat, those are the ones that are harder to deal with just because they just are never ending. So it would have been nice to maybe get a little bit more of, here are some ideas, but hey, it's up, right? Ultimately, it's up to the party to come up with the solution. Come up with a solution to a few of these. But on the face of it, it seems a little bit like, hey, this is just a way for you to kill your party's long rest, which some GMs might find handy. It's not my bag just to do that, but you never know what your party will come up with. Sleep Talking Storm. Alright, I want to see a combat one. Secure the bridge. Festival funsies. Alright. Oh no! I think, unfortunately, my slow as dirt laptop these days is having trouble keeping up with the graphics. Wand of Wonder. Gotta wait for the thing to catch up. Let's see. I don't think is there anything I can kill? Okay, the crossing. Here we go. Another non-combat one, but it's sort of a different archetype of random encounter. The hook is, it's a classic river, gorge, or chasm cross with some added spice from Zanzibar or from Dune, Arrakis. And they suggest here that the width of the crossing maybe should increase as the party level increase. And some people like that, some people don't. I sort of go with the, whatever it was, right? So if I drew a map and I had the chasm as 40 feet, and then the party get there when they're level 10, and now 40 feet of space is nothing for them due to whatever, just the way it is. But this is a random thing that's not on any map, so feel free to set the width. I might just roll some dice. And I kind of think might just say, right? Choose the width, roll 46 for the width in feet, or, have some, so, for what level, for what. Because I think part of this is, what I like about, random encounter type stuff is it's giving you all this stuff for you, making it very easy to determine. So the less thinky I have to do about stuff like that, I want. So yeah, I can increase the with the party level, but I would love if I got that guidance or something so that I don't have to think about that. I can just either roll a couple dice, look at a table, and just get it. But obviously this is fitting on a deck of cards, so you got to keep they don't have a ton of room. Short distance down from the crossing is a waterfall or a gorge. Oh, there's a typo. That should be chasm. It says charm. That's an interesting. I never think about that. That chasm and charm are separated by merely one letter and just one space on the alphabet. Rolls down sleepily to deeper danger. And again, we can adjust the height. No bridge seemingly for miles. The party needs wood to build a small craft or needs other environmental tools. Maybe have them lying nearby. That seems a little bit... No, you got to go and find that wood. Hopefully this is in a forest where wood is easy. Maybe it'll be in a desert or some kind of empty plain. But I'm not just... Here's all the bridge building materials. Happen to be right here. Wrong answer. You got to go find that stuff. Will the party reach the other side safely? So this is just a hook. All right, so let's get into the conflict. Here we go. So mid-crossing, you could have some kind of ambush. Of course, some of that should probably be on the hook because as they're approaching this thing, perception checks and other things might reveal that there are trolls living into this chasm or this, whatever this is, right? Living in the river, living in the chasm, living on the side of the walls of this ravine or gorge or whatever. There could be environmental things. It could be a storm hitting, but of course that's another one you need to set up, because if a storm just flies in and looked like it was clear skies before, makes it seem a little too neat. Whoops, sorry. So yeah, maybe they need to use stealth. Maybe they need to be in a hurry. Whatever method they choose, obviously will need extra checks or extra work to get around that stuff. Resolution, they either reach the other side or they're swept in the river, chasm, or gorge. Might be damage from a waterfall or a large just gravity fall. You might need to find an alternative way forward. If they reach the other side safely, they find a sturdy rope ladder rolled up and secured on that side that they just reached. Well, there you go. I'm not going to ask how somebody managed to pull that rope ladder all the way up, since you probably need to untie it at both ends. And if you untie it on the end, then you can't roll it along to you. Maybe it makes more sense if some other method. I don't know. So, yeah, it's cute, and maybe it helps them get back, but how do you get the rope ladder back across if you rolled it up like that? And how did they do that? We've got a twist. Once they reach the other side, there's some decision whether to go back across, a cry for help from the direction they just came from, or suddenly there are enemies approaching that are outnumber them. This is where a lot of parties, I think, would just fight. Or maybe once they reach the other side, the party realizes it's been going in the wrong direction. Oh, that would be fun. Or the passage forward from the other side is barred or extremely difficult in some way. Yeah, the twists in this case seem almost all of them just to negate the whole effort of getting across the gorge. Doesn't seem that fun of a twist, to be honest. I mean, some stuff could just happen. If I'm rolling dice for randomness, or this is what the encounter was coming up, and they just go through, then yeah, there might be enemies over there, and yeah, that might not be the spot that they should have crossed. It might all be due to poor decision making, but the twists are all pretty much saying, nah, go ahead and go back. Could be fun, but could be not so fun. All right, I want to get to some, at least, uno or dos combat ones. Ugh. You know, I didn't use Acrobat for the PDFs because I wanted to have, I thought this would be slimmer and faster, but it's, okay, I'm finding, okay, here we go. So I use Skim it's just a lightweight PDF viewer, which I thought would work well for these sorts of things. And for the most part, it does work well. But I don't know if it's just the way these things are layered or there's heavy images. But, you know, that's having to sit there and kind of buffer. It just shows me a blank page while it's buffering is clearly and obviously not the most, not the most telegenic thing for a stream to see blank pages. But here we go. Our first combat encounter, the chase. And the picture here shows a gelatinous cube sucking up an unlucky wizard or magic user of some kind as other people try to beat on it with clubs and swords. And it looks like a dwarf leans on his axe, bemused by it all. The chase might happen in a crowded market area, though this can happen anywhere, so adapt to fit. Party witnesses a figure slay an important local NPC. Drop its weapon, dart into cover. Others, okay, so I guess we're presuming there's a bunch of people here. So in the crowd, one person stabs or does something else, mortally wounds an important figure. They run, they drop their weapon and run. Some other people gather around to tend to the NPC. Alternatively, this same figure, mysterious person, steals something from the party or from said important NPC, or the figure's caught spying. Okay, so I guess by caught, they mean the party notices they're being spied upon by this figure. Presumably once they notice that, the figure notices them, and then runs away. But regardless, this creature, individual is running away. This figure is running away from the party, and only the party has seen them. Use rounds and the usual chase rules from the core books. Well, the problem is that there aren't very good chase rules in the core books. Are there even any chase rules in the core books? There probably are, but then it just comes down to how much you're moving, how fast is your dash action. I think that's one of the things that often gets home ruled around is chase rules. But yeah, I guess presuming you either have your own rules or you're just going to use the rules as written. Can the party catch the figure before it gets away? All right, so that's the hook. All right, this figure coming in, chasing. So the conflict. In each round, you need to deal with navigating obstacles. Could be climbing rooftops, pushing through crowds, looking for shortcuts. Okay, so here, this is interesting because it's kind of like they're giving us some rules for chasing without giving us rules. So they're sort of sliding these things in here that amount sort of giving us some rules for chasing, but not as a set of rules. So if the party dashes, then they roll or they get exhaustion. The figure ahead of them might hit or slash an animal, causing it to get in the way. Might run towards a crowd or through a crowd. Could push people over bridges. Basically do the kind of things you see in movies, right? Throw pedestrians, throw innocent what do you call it? Not victims. Innocent bystanders. Just push them into the party or push them into dangerous situations. So if this was down a street in a town and there are wagons coming down the middle of the street and there's people walking to the side, maybe this guy pushes like a child, and now the child is about to be crushed by an oxen or a cart or both. Now, how does the party respond to those things? And it's trying to dart around corners. It could be trying to run down alleys. Maybe it tries to disappear into the crowd instead of just trying to put the crowd between it and the party. Maybe it tries to blend in and sort of vanish. Obviously, he's trying to break line of sight. Barge into pole supporting heavy materials. Okay, so if we look at this, seems to be kind of like an Aladdin situation, or you have sort of awnings, or you have things supporting heavy materials. You have weight supporting beams, or the beams of an awning, maybe the beams of not a cart, but I don't know, what would it even be? I don't know, like just big bundles of things that may be being held up by beams or sticks or things. I'm not sure what those would be, but presumably they could knock them over, try to get them to collapse, try to grapple it. Maybe it has weapons, or there's improvised weapons lying around. Every decision point raises the potential of losing ground to the figure. Yeah, this is true. So I like that they give all this, because you need it to kind of talk about how you're working through this. It really is a skill challenge, essentially. And you could even run it as an interesting skill challenge where some of the things, the negative things that the figure, this creature does, are triggered by fails. So, I'm going to roll, I don't know, whatever, to find a shortcut, something, and it fails, maybe then that causes you to lose line of sight, or they start to disappear in the crowd or something else. So you can kind of work that in like that. Again, remember, these cards look big, but this is a deck of cards and not an 8x11 page, so just keep that in mind as far as how much room they have. But it's one of those where I just crave a little bit more detail as to how to make this work. But you definitely have some options here. And the other thing with chases is because they are some that tend to be unsatisfying with the rules. It's kind of like I wish there was a some addendum or some other info that they could give that here's how to run chases because we're going to use these. And the encounters, here's some chase rules we found that work, that are easy and somewhat cross-platform, or just 5th edition-ish, but, not so much that needs to go through the OGL or something. Kind of, just some freewheeling rules to get us through chases to make them more exciting. All right, so the resolution is that the figure wants to get somewhere. We don't know where. Maybe where someone's prepared to hide it or help it. If the figure's not caught, it disappears. And a place may need ransacked, or a helper may need negotiated. Which, well, if he disappears, how do they find the helper? That seems a little bit weird. If it is caught, maybe it reveals something. So this is a good way to. This is a great encounter, I think. At least quibble with how they're running it or how they've given it to run, but it's interesting from the fact that it's a good way to, if your party is kind of fiddle-faddling in town and they're not, either they've sort of lost threads of the quest they're working on or they're just messing around. It's sort of an orcs attack type situation, but not being attacked where maybe they're in the tavern and they're blobbing around, or they're just going from shops, they're doing all the shopping stuff, and you as a GM, you kind of want to get things back. Maybe not all the parties engaged with all this, and so you feel like you're kind of losing momentum and you want to get it back. Having somebody out of the corner of their eye spot somebody who's been following them, like Orcs Attack, bam, it's kind of a really clear call to action, and then when that figure does something, either notices that they've been spotted and runs away or does something else, then it's a really good way to get that momentum back, because almost everybody's going to want to try to catch that guy. I feel like it's a good bet that a lot of parties, if confronted with somebody who's spying on them, let alone killing an important NPC or something like that, but just being a threat to the party on some level is going to cause a response, which is why things like Orc Attack work, and which is why this would work. And here we have a twist. The figure spills the beans that whatever they were doing was in revenge for something that the NPC did or for an unpaid debt. Maybe the party could be rewarded by the town for helping, but wonder if the figure's actions were justified. I mean, that one, I don't think players tend to care about the motivations of these NPCs. I don't think they're going to spend time wondering whether this nameless, momentary adversary had some great motivation, and whether they were right. Was the mayor really bad? We'll never know. I don't know. Maybe if it was an NPC that was important and they learned that there's some kind of dark mystery there, that might be interesting. That they might care about that, particularly if it has to do with their backstories or their whatever they're trying to do. But I don't think they're just going to wonder just because. Or maybe the body of the important person, if they killed a person, disappears. Yeah, maybe. I kind of wonder if they're giving us too much choices in here. I don't know. I'd be curious when people start to play these if they find that each of these cards, instead of giving you a really just specific situation, gives you a lot of like, oh, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this, you do that. And yeah, that makes it more flexible in some ways. But in the moment when you're pulling one of these out, sometimes that flexibility actually makes them harder to use, because you have to do a lot of thinking that you may not want to do. You may not feel like you have time to do. So you really just want to get to know. I just want to know what I'm doing. And making it maybe this, maybe that, maybe something else doesn't help. But I'm just reading these. I'm not using them in play, so I can't say from my own experience, but that might be something to think about. Okay, don't break glass in emergency. Let's see. I'm looking for another one. I want to do at least one more combat one. Oh no! All right, let's give my PDF here a moment to catch up. Heinz 57. Come on. There we go. Well, they got me with the name. Did someone say Jumanji? Can you use Jumanji? Isn't that someone's? That's gotta be copyright, right? Jumanji. Well, the title got me. So let's see what they got to say about Jumanji. The hook. The party enters a location where wind begins blowing hard. Strength saves to stay on feet or grasp onto something. The wind appears to swirl in violent circles, a maelstrom. Dexterity saves to avoid flying debris or objects or animals. Suddenly it stops. No trace of the wind source. The party faces a tough skill challenge, like climbing, scaling, climbing, traversing some difficult obstacles, But as it begins, each PC realizes that something's wrong. Each player must hand their character sheet to the player to the left. Or if you're playing online, the DM reassigns sheets. The PC's minds have been warped temporarily, swapped with those of other party members. How will the party handle mind swaps? I actually wouldn't call that Jumanji per se. I kind of thought they were going to do what was that, The Simpsons from way long ago, when there's like a herd of animals descending on the Simpsons, and Homer yells out Jumanji, like that will stop it. I mean, that's of course a callback to the it seems like ancient original Jumanji movie they've already made. My daughter loves these newer Jumanji movies. Well, she's only seen the first one, but she loves that one. But okay, so we got a mind swap. So I don't know how this is a combat one. All right, so everyone gets this. As soon as you look, they say after working out what's up, but look, as soon as you as the GM have said, okay, everyone hand your character sheet over to the person to the left, you pretty much got it. But yeah, they've worked it up. Okay, so after they've figured it out, they still need to do the skill challenge, and the PCs need to adapt. That's true, but how much they have to adapt is going to be very dependent. Almost dependent really on right where you're seated or where the person next to you. If you have, the barbarian and the fighter next to each other, probably not that much of a twist up. But you could play with the confusion of the body switching. Maybe you could add to the difficulty. Okay, but during the challenge, the party is now attacked by creatures of your choice. Oh, my choice? Thank you. They need to fight and complete the skill challenge while unfamiliar with body and skills. But they're not saying what the effect of this unfamiliarity is. I guess it's up to you, right? You could be harsh. Just give people, start handing out disadvantage like it's candy. Maybe you could do some other checks. I don't know. There's nothing mechanical here, so you really have to kind of just decide how you're going to do it. Disadvantage seems kind of harsh. I mean, it's a -5 to everything, but maybe there's some way to mitigate it so that they get used to it after a certain amount of seconds, but that's up to you. In the Jumanji, well, in the old Jumanji movies, the guy came here. There, no one took over other people's bodies. In the new Jumanji, when they did it, it took a little while for people to figure it out, but they weren't under constant threat, so they kind of each of the people had that moment in the movie where they figured out kind of what their special ability was and how to use it. So maybe it didn't take too long. Any case, you got to figure that out. You're on your own, DMs, to figure out how to play with that particular part of the challenge or the encounter. The resolution, the skill challenge is done. The battle is won or lost. The minds are still swapped, at least until the party moves off. So in whatever this area, the wind kind of is going to trigger the mind swap, and then it's going to trigger the minds being swapped back. And then there's no trace of anything aside from a laughing magic user flying off into the distance. All right. The twist. What if the switch happens every round, or at least one more time? The maelstrom might reappear mid-combat, and the character sheets are swapped again. Laughing magic user might not fly off, but remain and give a quest to the party, having tested its resolve. Or the magic user might take their minds, leaving the PCs with minds of commoners or commoners, or creatures to ensure subservience until opportunity arises for reversal. I actually saw something similar to this twist idea. It was an old movie about Atlantis, and this guy who was a Greek fisherman ends up going to Atlantis, and they had a thing where I think it was they kind of being turned into some kind of using Atlantean magic. At least some people were turning people into sort of animal hybrids. And part of the thing there was over time, their minds they would forget their humanity and just become animalistic. I like the idea that maybe it happens again, that they got to switch. It could be fun. I mean, with magic, it's just fun because suddenly you have somebody who doesn't know anything about their spell list or anything who now has to try to give them spells, or cast spells, or whatnot. You could have some fun with that. All right, so let's see. Let's do one more. I'm looking for something to catch my fancy, and I've got about 40. Ooh, there's a lot of stuff here. 40 pages or so. Maybe I should go look at the end to see if there's any supplemental info. I'm waiting for my PDF to appear. Okay, some gruesome loot. I'm just gonna, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go ahead. So that it says there's 104 pages. Let's go to page 90. I want to see. Okay. Blank page. Let me just give it a minute to fulfill. My thoughts on this so far. I think it's pretty good. I guess I feel like it comes across maybe some of the criticisms being a little bit negative. I do think that the grammar needs to be fixed. I know that it's on a playing card, but there's definitely vertical space available in some of these spots where they could just add the A's and Us and thes and things like that to just make it better English. I would have appreciated a little bit more mechanical help on some of this, maybe, but again, hard to say, right? What you can fit. I'm looking at these PDFs blown up and made essentially the similar size to a regular letter size page. If I were looking at these as regular playing cards, I might change my mind entirely. But they definitely seem to have some fun. They're definitely fun. They definitely give you some different things, some different options to do for encounters. I like that there's a mix of ones that are, you don't even have to be. I mean, some of the ones that they list as combat encounters, you could run as non-combat encounters just fine. It might even make it more interesting if it wasn't so, if you didn't just throw in and now the combat happens, but maybe make it more up to the party whether they combat or not, or use reactions and things like that to make it more. Who knows whether this ogre, when you're trying to get across that chasm, whether it attacks or whether it sits there, whether you can give it some food and let it pass. Right, there are options. Drag on dragon. The hook is a group of horseback riders are drag. Okay. A group of horseback riders are dragging on ground and at speed. So I guess they're not slow. Okay, so they're dragging a human female, appears to be a human female, tied to a rope. The head is covered by a sack, and they're dragging it on the ground. They pass the party. Yes, this is where I'll say the group crosses the party's path. Maybe the party needs the party. Oh, I see. So maybe they need to move. Maybe the road's not wide enough for the trail, so they have to ask the party to move so they can hurry past. This female, appears to be a female anyway, is shrieking in pain, screaming that she did nothing wrong, and the riders are yelling at her to pipe down. If the riders are persuaded to release any details, they claim that she's a witch, which she denies. And they say she's a danger to the community, and they're under orders to ride her far from anybody living and hang her. What will happen? What happens if the party intervenes? So obviously they don't have to intervene, right? They can just let them go. Obviously, some of this hook is posited on the party showing enough interest. I mean, I think it's a good bet that they would, given that dragging people behind on the ground is usually something that you kind of want to stop. But they say she's a witch. The conflict is the riders are heavily armed and outnumber the party, and the horses could be nasty adversaries as well. The riders will not negotiate. They are under orders, and they will not breach the commands they've been given. They will attack if the party doesn't move out of the way. They believe their orders overrule everything else. And if there is a battle, the horse that's got the female tied to it will bolt, dragging the female off. Resolution. If the party wins the battle or otherwise ensures the release of the woman, somehow she thanks the party. Despite all her screams of pain and the rips in her clothes from being dragged, curiously, she appears completely unhurt. She'll respond to any party queries in a confusing manner, even to the point of raising suspicion. I guess theoretically, if they don't kill all the horses, there are enough horses available for the party to use. And in comes the twist. At any point that seems appropriate, surprising, or cool, the female begins to laugh. During the laugh, her voice gets ever deeper and creepier. Oh, and then her shape changes, increasing in size, and she polymorphs into a huge ancient copper dragon. For sheer entertainment, she's been toying with the local authority by masquerading as a witch. Again, she thanks the party for playing part in her delightful entertainment, provides any advice or information helpful to its quest before flying away, chuckling to herself. Are copper dragons supposed to be good, evil, or neutral? I don't know. It doesn't seem so nice. She's toying with these authorities by masquerading as a witch, but she must have done, I mean, when they say, she says toying, I wonder what she did to get them to literally condemn her to death, unless we're just saying that this is kind of, Monty Python-esque medieval times, or not even Monty Python-esque, but, a very puritanical society that just being at all unusual gets you condemned to death. I mean, it didn't just happen in Salem and those places. Such things happen in other places as well, but in a fantasy world, I guess it's up to you whether you find that is in itself is enough reason, or if she was doing stuff there, having her little fun, but maybe causing some people some pain. And of course, these poor soldiers who were just following orders, well, they lost their lives for her sport. So she flies away. That's a cool little thing to have with a dragon. You want to have the dragon come in and do something. It's kind of fun to have dragons kind of come in and do. I know people love the whole dragon masquerading around as a human, so I don't think it would be all that surprising to the party. I mean, I thought about this when I was just first reading it, that they're dragging this female behind at speed, and she's not dead. I mean, it doesn't take much to drag somebody across the ground and then for them to die from whatever injuries sustained. So the fact that she seemed to be alive after all that would have probably give a lot of people pause if they stop the riders and take a look at this lady covered in a sack, and they're like, yeah, she doesn't seem to be hurt. They might be like, what? Maybe she is a witch or a hag or something else that, might be caught. But it's fun. All right, so that's the last one I'm going to do for this. I do just want to check the back of this, see if there's any particular cards. I thought we did a couple of combat ones. We did some non-combat ones. And now I've surpassed my PDF buffer once again. Even a little loading screen or loading something would be better than seeing it white. Okay, there's that. All right, that is it. So let me just go back to the front page. All right, so this was the Outlander deck. So what do I think? Having read through a few of these and sort of skimmed the rest. So basically, 50 random encounters. I'm guessing it's about 25 and 25 non-combat versus combat encounters. They do take some work. These are not ones that you can just flip out and are going to be everything you need. You are going to have to put some work into, just reading it, right? You probably want to read the entire thing before you start reading it out to the players, because some of the stuff that they have different things sectioned off, right, in the hook and in the conflict and the resolution and the twist, but they all do interplay somewhat so that you'll want to read the whole thing yourself. There is a lot of decision making that you will need to do as a GM to make these work. Definitely, if the situations don't fit exactly where you are, you will want to put in the work to get them to a spot that you can use. And a lot of them have a lot of choices, right? They'll say something like, important NPC. And so you got to decide who is this important NPC, or creatures of your choice, or this or that. So you got to figure out, well, who are these creatures of my choice? So you're going to have to, it's not going to be a replacement for having books or having things of that nature, because you're going to need to reference that stuff. It is very much written clearly with 5th edition in mind, but it's not giving you a lot of details. It is rules. It is empty of specific rules. They throw in saving throws, and they might say, improvise damage or use chase rules, but right, there's no crunch in here at all in terms of mechanically how this stuff works. So you're going to have to put in that work when you're going through them to figure out how you're going to do them. Depending on the type of GM that you are, you may find that very easy. You go, yeah, okay, boom, and you're off. Or you may find that it's maybe not as helpful as you might have wanted, because you wanted something that was going to take care of all that for you, and this is going to be more something you could be inspirational with. One thing you could do, I think, which is certainly an option, which would be if you were using this deck to, even though it'd be fun to kind of toss them out or flip them or do the actual physical. If you're assuming you're playing in a physical table, right? You're playing in a group. You're not playing on Roll20 or through Discord or anything like that. You can have the deck and shuffle and have that real tactile feel and drawing the cards. You even have the party could draw the cards, right? But the other thing you do is flip them in advance, and that way you could prep this stuff up a bit more as you need, so that when you're getting something, creatures of your choice, you could even make down a little list. Maybe you could make down a little table. You could say, oh yeah, in this situation, I think kobolds would be a good creature, or dire wolves, or something else. The biggest ding I have for it, and their decks of cards, I know it looks big on the stream because I've blown it up to read it, but it's card size. I'm assuming just regular playing card sized. The big negative, as far as it is one, and hopefully they fix it, is that there's just a lot of I don't see a lot of misspellings and things like that. Don't think I saw any, but there's just a lot of grammatical issues, I just think, and I don't know if it's because of space. I don't know if it's because of doing fine replacing kind of stuff in the layout stage. I don't know where it was, but there's a lot of just grammatical issues, and it really does lead to it just being a little bit clunky to read. And I think there are a few times where it really does affect the comprehension, how easy it is to comprehend what they're trying to say. Hopefully they fix that. It's not a deal breaker per se. You could certainly get by without it, but it just seems like a lot of these are not pushing the entire vertical length of the space that they have. So I just think, man, it just add in a few 10 or 20 more words of just a little, a, and, the, your, there, whatever it is, and just throw them back in there, because man, it just makes it so much easier to read. And a lot of times when I was reading them, if you watch the whole stream, or if you're just jumping in now, when I was reading through the descriptions, I ended up adding them in, and you can see me stumble as I'm trying to figure out what they should be. But just add those back in, and hopefully that's been corrected. Obviously they can, I don't know if they're printing them on demand or how they're doing them, if there's a stock. Hopefully if there's a version 1.2 or 1.1, 1.01, that might be an option if you need to kind of cut the text a little bit to make room for those and change the descriptions. I encourage them to do that, because it's just a little bit of that just makes it a little bit less polished sounding and tougher to read. And when you have such a small bit of text and everything, you want everything to be hyper clear, and it does take away from that clarity. But that was the Outlander deck by Venger's Decks. In the description for this, there's a link to their web store where you can purchase these if you thought they were handy. I'd definitely be curious for more as they come out, and I'm definitely seeing what they do with the format. I really do. I do like the hook, the conflict, the resolution. I like those. I would try to make sure that everything you need for the hook is in the hook section, and make sure that these different things you need, so you don't have to read too much. Maybe I would move the twist. The twist is always at the bottom of the deck on the flip side, but sometimes could be raised up, depending on where the twist is. Maybe even put the twists in line if they're really short. Hey, twist, the creature's really a dragon, or twist, whatever. So I might look at I like the formatting overall, but I think you could also look at maybe optimizing that formatting just a bit, just to get a little bit more in there. I would love taking some of those, hey, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's something else, and being a little bit more specific, or at least having maybe an addendum that's got some ways to generate stuff, just to make it easier for me if I am using these, because my powers of improv are not the best, then I want to have as much tools as they can to help me. And when it really is left up to me and I have to end up improvising a lot anyway, it does defeat the purpose of the decks a little bit. But I'm really excited to see what they do with these. If you have these and you've used them, like I said, I think they just came out at the beginning of March, beginning of this month. If you're listening to this, March 2020, I believe is when they first came out. So depending on when you find this, they may just be out now, or they may be out for a little while or a long time. If you do end up using these, let me know what you think. I am excited to see where they go with this. But that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching. Oh, and hey, hit subscribe and hit the little bell if you want to know about stuff. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. It helps me out, keeps me going. But apart from that, have a great rest of your day. or night or whenever you're watching this, and I'll talk to you later.